What is it with these kids, right? They're multitaskers. The technology enables that. They're ambitious. They're optimistic. They're socially concerned. If you don't believe that, look at what just happened in this election, huh? They're flexible. They see work is not a place you go. Work is a thing that you do. And they'll be working from home after dinner. They'll be working in the morning. And they're also really interested in a meritocracy. They are obsessive about this. They don't want to be measured based on time served. They want to be measured by a speedometer, not by an odometer. And these kids want to be right. It's really important for them to get it right. We'll say a little bit more about this. They also tend to be really good team players. I mean, they've been raised in an educational system now where we have really focused as parents on teamwork, and it comes through when you spend time with these kids, and they like to have fun. Well, I've started and run a number of biotechnology companies, and I usually benefited from some management consulting when things got a little bit rough. And my best executive coach always pointed out to me that the flip side of all of your greatest strengths, Leighton, are also your greatest weaknesses. And it's true for Gen Y as well. You know, these multitaskers are distracted. This ambition turns into great meaning, unrealistic expectations about promotion. You know, they want to be the CEO in 3 years. They want to be promoted multiple times a year. They want all kinds of things. This optimism can easily turn to disappointment if the conversation about the way the world really works doesn't match their expectations. And social concern, they need a mission. And shareholder value for your corporation probably isn't going to cut it for them. It has to be part of something bigger and larger. And even if they love the mission of your company, for example, the Gen Ys that you hire at Timberland, they still want time off in the afternoon to go work on their personal nonprofit activities, okay? They demand a work-life balance. They're going to put tremendous pressure on our enterprises and institutions with respect to that. And they need feedback. They are so needy for feedback because in the world they've lived in, they get points in writing their, in their writing assignments. They get points for putting their name on the paper and the date correctly, starting in elementary school. So they are going to wear your managers out. They're so hungry for feedback. It's not enough to give them feedback after a project. You have to give them a feedback after every meeting, maybe every memo, maybe even every email if we can get them to use email. But they also need clear direction. This is a little bit of a watch out here. These kids have been, the way we educate them has created so much structure here that we're noticing challenges in terms of their ability to tackle broad and ambiguous goals. And we need to create environments that help them with that. Now, of course, these are generalizations. There are baby boomers that act like this. And there are Gen Xers who are extremes here. But I think this is an accurate reflection of the direction here. This is my version of the list from Ron Alsop's great brand new book called The Trophy Generation, just out and very well reviewed online. So part of our answer to this, as you've already heard, is we think your company ought to have a game strategy. So what is that? It's an approach to exploring, evaluating, deploying powerful new management and collaboration tools which are inspired by the world of multiplayer online games, which we've already heard a little bit about. So when Gary Hamel called for new technologies, we got to reinvent management. This is one of our suggestions about how to do that. There's incredible low-hanging fruit and opportunities we could borrow for this world of these online games. And the reason we should care is because this Gen Y is going to expect it, and also because we're going to argue that it works, because we've seen how it works in the games. Now, I had a chance to participate in this management lab project that Gary Hamel organized, and that's where I met Vineet, and I'm very thankful to him for inviting me and for the chance to learn from this great panel. You guys couldn't have, there's a lot of harmony here in our comments, so I'm looking forward to the discussion. Our own work has been influenced by some great work by Tom Malone at MIT. On the right side there is an article you might have seen. The May issue of Harvard Business Review was one of our own pieces on studying leadership in these online labs. It's the May of 2008 Harvard Business Review. And leadership is just the tip of the iceberg. But what we've learned by looking at these raids where 20 to 40 people engage in a 5-hour exercise that they prepared for weeks, through offline websites and a social community that builds up. It's entirely an emergent property in these games where people collaborate. The characters that they're driving in these games have been built up over hundreds of hours, and they are very differentiated characters. You know, if the job of the corporation is to coordinate work from people with different skills, just watching these games, light bulbs start going off right and left when you realize that these teams are an environment where this kind of coordination takes place. The leaders aren't appointed by the game. The leaders emerge, and there's something about this environment that manufactures leadership and followership. Some of the elements that do that are the extraordinarily successful feedback and incentive systems that are built in, clarity about what the goal is, sort of a fluid shifting about who's the leader and who's the follower, and dashboards, which turns out to be more important for the follower than for the leader, because the dashboards tell the followers where they need to fit in and where their role is. And of course, they're communicating over IM and TeamSpeak and VoIP, thank you very much, and all kinds of technologies that are parallel. This really is the future, and it's going to be a long future, because as we've studied the psychology of these games, there's a lot more to be done in the games, and we can learn from it at work. In the center there is a book that Harvard Business Press is going to publish for my co-author Byron Reeves and I that covers this whole topic. In the book, we'll talk about this. I don't have time now. There's a recipe in these games. There are elements. Most of the great games have most of the elements on this list, and we won't go through them today. But I'd point out the economies in these games is almost like a psychological operating system that ties all these other reward structures together. Very interesting. So this is a little bit in the future, but you're familiar with call centers. Not too far in the future, Jen is going to go to work in her call center job, whether it's working at home or in a physical call center with other people. She's going to sit down at her computer, and it's going to be a game maybe with a piratey kind of theme, where they have little piratey avatars, and there's a narrative there about getting to the island and finding the gold and so on. And she's going to check out the status of her 8-person team. And she cares about this team because they've been interacting for weeks together, and it's clear to Jen what she gets when we win. Games do a really good job of solving that classic problem of free riders and teamwork. What do I get when we win? So she checks on her personal page to check her personal reputation, because in these games, reputations are transparent, and you can't spoof them. It's like a 10,000 high ratings on eBay for a power seller. Jen wants to check on one of her team members who's not doing so well, so she rolls her mouse over to Mike and right-clicks on Mike and checks out his page and sees that he's lagging behind on some really key metrics that are going to hold her team back. So she uses IM, or one of the technologies your kids are using right now. Hey, Mike, come on. I saw that you did pretty good on that call late yesterday. We're all striving to get to this next level for our team. Let's see what we can do. It's time for her to pick her mission for the day and start making some money for shareholders. So she goes and with kind of flexible assignments, she gets to pick out her assignment for the day. It turns out that the harder assignments are worth more in terms of the reward structure inside this game. And so she decides to help reschedule. In this case, it's a cruise confirmation call. And we already know that call center workers are pretty much wired up as it is. What hasn't been done is to take that plumbing and use the psychology then of game design in order to give her feedback in every time scale. Humans don't just need frequent feedback, they need feedback on every time scale. So these Gen Ys are really asking for the same things that all of us want. We'd like to know minute by minute, and thank you for the body language. I don't see that many blackberries out on the table, so I appreciate that feedback. But we need feedback at the end with the applause, on a 10-minute scale. We need feedback after in terms of, I thought that was an interesting or provocative or crazy comment you made. Weeks later, I remember something you said. We all respond to feedback on all these timescales. Well, game designers intuited this. They aren't all PhDs and psychologists, but they figured out how to deliver that, and we have a lot to learn from that in the workplace. So just to finish with an example, this is about email, and email isn't going to go away anytime soon, but imagine this in which email is just the ATM. And what would happen if we took one element from these games, the virtual currency that these games use so well, and you used it as a way to signal how much you care about your message. So this could be an email, an instant message. It even could be a caller ID next to the caller ID. Imagine if there was a little bit of currency there that indicated how much the sender cared to get your attention. But it's not, they can't just fill in any arbitrary number because they have a budget. Imagine in this world that everyone gets the same allowance whether it's the most senior person in the company or the most junior. Everyone gets 100, totally arbitrary number. But the point is that it's egalitarian. And then let the currency flow where it goes. So if you want to raise your hand and say, hey, this is the one message I'd really like to have your focus on this week, you might send them an entire week's allowance. And then the recipient might be able to see that in a column. And in this case, our software is working in Microsoft Outlook. And so we install a new column there. And you could rank order this column if you want. And it gives you a signal that, like those eBay reputation points, you can't really spoof it. You only have so many serios you can spend. This has a very salutary effect on the abuse of the CC line and replies to all, because if you want to get above the fold in somebody's inbox, it's hard to do that if you're being promiscuous with your email. So a little use case here. The guy in the lower right here, Peter, after he gets his allowance, might send 10 serios to John with an idea for a marketing promotion. John might say, hey, that's a really good idea, and send back twice as many serios as he got. So Peter's now up 10. An exchange between Jen and Peter might have a different outcome. That would probably lead to a conversation like, what is it about my idea that you didn't give me the serios back? She might go back to John with maybe to complain about Peter, or maybe to talk about something new. Start a new conversation with a big slug of serios, and he might send the same serials straight back. My executive coach always said, as a manager, there's just 3 things you want to be consistent about when you talk to your teammates. Keep doing that, do less of that, and do more of that. And what an idea like a synthetic currency does is it introduces liquidity into what is currently a barter system. How easy could it be to simply say, keep doing that by sending the serios back to somebody? And of course, you're going to extinguish unwanted emails, all those bad jokes from your brother-in-law. You know, if you never send any serios back, he might get the message. All right. So there's a lot of things you can do with a currency. The gamers have figured all this stuff out. Things like this are going on in the games. We talked about getting attention or giving feedback. You can discover what other people think is important. You could delegate voice. Say there's a person in your organization who totally gets what you're about. I mean, they really get it. They're on the program. You could take the excess serios that you might accumulate because you're rewarding people with attention who send you serios. Take those excess serios and just give them to the kid who really gets it. I'll tell you, this will work in Generation Y from everything we've seen, because that kid can then go use those serials to go get other people's attention. It's literally sort of the purest, simplest form of delegation, to just throw a slug of serials along with an email to somebody who's carrying the water for your cause. You could make conditional propositions, like, if you come to my meeting, I'll give you 100 serios, and if the meeting's any good, I'll send them back to me. You could participate in a knowledge marketplace. If I'll continue to do all the extra work to add metadata and tag my code, as long as you guys keep sending the serios, and if you quit, then I'll know you don't really care that much. So why should I participate in creating knowledge management if nobody cares enough to play money? So anyway, there's a lot of opportunities here. It's just one little example of the things that we can learn from games, and I appreciate the chance. Look forward to hearing your comments about it later. Thanks.